So I know for me, managing life around FPL isn't too difficult because I play and I content create alongside my husband, and obviously we live in the same house. So during a global pandemic, it's actually been relatively easy for us to kind of just keep going because, you know, we do it sat in our house at home. I guess it's slightly more challenging working around the kids at the moment because they are there, and our eldest is now of the opinion that he can help me make FPL decisions. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how he gets on when he eventually has his own team. I think he'll blow the budget quite a lot. But how do you guys manage your lives, your job, your family commitments around FPL? Not just playing the game, but also your content creating that you're doing as well.
In the early days of creating content, it was definitely a bit of a guilty pleasure and not something that I really, you know, shared with friends and family. And I think it was because of the career I was in at the time. It was that difficulty of managing a open social media profile while trying to keep things private. But since I've gone into doing FPL content part-time as sort of my main job, I've been able to, you know, really put myself out there a little bit more. So instead of having it as a hobby that I was doing on an evening, I've now got the time to spend, you know, more daytime hours doing that when my daughter's at nursery and trying to fit it around that. But obviously when we had that global pandemic, for my mental health, I really struggled not having the content to produce, and I was looking away because there's a podcast that I'm involved with, and you know, we still decided to record every week, and we just, you know, did silly games. And I know a lot of the rest of you did similar sorts of things, but you know, it's a real lifeline. I don't think I'm someone that's cut out to be a full-time mum and not have anything else going on. So I like the challenge of having both things to juggle.
It's good fun, isn't it? I think it adds another dimension. And I think one of the things I love about FPL is it's something that's for you, like it's your team and you're free to manage them in a way that suits you. And you know, yes, I listen to all those amazing content that we've been talking about that's out there in the community, but most of all, I kind of come away from it and think, right, what's my view on that then? And how am I going to use that in my team? And I love the fact that we can do that. Kylie, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would completely agree with that. I do think it's funny how you can see an identifiable personality in everyone by the decisions they make. In terms of how I balance everything, sometimes really well, sometimes not so well. It has been a challenge this last year, working from home. I'm a marketing manager in a cybersecurity firm, and it's been a really hectic year on the work front. So the lines are very blurred between work and life. And then you're adding in podcast recording. There's not a massive time commitment for that. It's obviously a lot of it is prep, and doing the record feels like an escape, you know, because it feels like sitting around and having a chat with friends about something that you all love. And that has been great because it is that bit of an escape when you otherwise are living your entire life, you know, in the same four walls. and that's a challenge we've all faced, right? But I think the balance is getting better. I mean, we're now nearly a year into this, and I think we all have the routine now. I do think that having the football continue helps. It's sort of like Holly said, when we had that period where there was no football being played, but we were still all in lockdown, that was a challenge because you lost another piece of the structure of your life, basically. So we've got something to focus on that's enjoyable. So you find the time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think, you know, when we were in that period of time without football, it was like every day, like, when's the football coming back? Like, I feel like I missed it so much. And it has, like, through the second and third lockdowns, it's made such a big difference to be able to put the TV on and kind of escape into the world of football and of FPL. Like, it is definitely, it's great for the mental health, I think, having it still there. Nym, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely been great to have football during this time. It's a definite escapism. It's been tough to manage it around all the content creating and things like that, especially this season, because obviously the games are just coming thick and fast and the content is jam-packed at the moment. Thankfully, like you girls, some of you girls, my job overlaps with FPL, so it's a bit easier to keep up to date with all the news and the updates. My graphic design overlaps quite well with my video making and my social media graphics. But I've been doing it for 3 years now, so it's kind of just second nature to me. It's like anything else. Once you've got into the swing of things, you just get your head down and get on with it.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's true. I think when we first started, it was like, you know, you'd have to find time to get involved in all of these different communities in order to build your channels and build your platforms. But actually, once you've established a channel, a piece of content that you are creating, suddenly actually it's just a piece of life that is kind of like, oh, every Sunday night 8:30, that's what I'm doing. Or, you know, when there's a Friday deadline ahead of that, that's what I'm focused on. And it definitely helps the longer that you do these things, for sure. So if we look back on the data of the number of women playing the game from the 2012-13 season, there were 138,000, just over 138,000 women playing the game, up to this season when there are 355,000 women playing the game. So a big increase of 200,000 women that have kind of join us in playing FPL, and I think in part that's because of the work that you guys do in terms of content creating and making it more accessible to women to get involved in the community. I know, Nim, when you first joined YouTube, there was nobody else around doing it. So the fact that now there are people, and you know, you look on YouTube and Twitter and other forms of social media for female people active in the community, and it's not just the content creators. There are a number of women active in the FPL community who are engaged on Twitter and in those kind of things. How do we, and why do we think, I guess, that women are becoming increasingly or buying increasingly into, I'm going to ask that again. Why do we think it is that women are buying increasingly into FPL and getting involved in the communities that we all really love? Nim, do you want to start?
I think as the game has grown, so has the wider interest from all walks of life, really. Hopefully a wider presence of women in and around football in general really has also helped, whether that be the women's game itself or the female representation in presenters and pundits on television. It's all helped other women to see it's possible to be involved in and around the game. And as you say, hopefully we've all helped a little bit with that as well, in showing women that it's okay to come and talk about FPL if you enjoy it, and engage with other people like yourselves, really.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree with that, because obviously we know that there's a huge audience globally for football among women. There are a lot of female supporters of football. And I think as we see increasing visibility of women in the industry, to Nim's point about having female presenters be more visible, and it's a more regular thing. And we absolutely want to see that. So I'd like to think that with all of these factors, we're going to see an increase in that, okay, it's okay for me to be a part of this big bustling community. There are a lot of women about, as we've said, there are a lot of women in the Twitter community in particular. And while they may not be content creators, you know, they're creating their own content in the form of their tweets, and they're very passionate about fantasy football and football in general. So I think in that community, I've seen quite an increase in the last season of female participation in the game and in the community. And I'd like to think that we're going to continue to see that grow, but we just have to encourage them. You know?
Yeah,
that's it.
absolutely.
I think
solidarity, you know.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, you look at the stats for men playing the game, and in the same period of time, they've risen by over 5 million players, from 2.4 to this year 7.1 million. You know, that is a massive jump in the number of men engaging in it. And I think you're right in what you're saying. The last couple of years in particular, we have really seen a growth of female presence. at the side of football pitches, commentating on their games, presenting in the FPL shows and in the Premier League shows and in the lower league as well as the more availability for watching female football on the TV. So there's this wealth of opportunity, I suppose, and it gives women confidence to kind of walk into that community on a level playing field and say, actually, here's my opinion. And it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, and it would be great to see it continue to grow as well. And I think one thing that FPL has done in recent years is, really seen a massive boom in certain countries that weren't necessarily involved in FPL before. So we've seen a massive influence in terms of the community in India. There's some, really great podcasts that have cropped up, and Fantasy Football Scout have started doing some Arabic content as well, and a lot of Egyptian players have come in because of the Mo Salah influence.
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's still going to be a lot of growth of females joining the game, because culturally it's very different in those countries compared to here in the UK. So we will see more growth in that respect. And one thing that's really supporting that, and will continue to support that to grow, is the fact that Premier League productions are very passionate about having women involved in their Premier League content, which is going out to a global audience, and also on the official FPL channels as well. I mean, me and you, Sam, we did an episode of the FPL show last season, so we had 2 female pundits in that studio and 1 female presenter out of those 4 voices on that programme, and all of that's going to continue to help the game to grow globally for women rather than just here in the UK.
Yeah, and I think for me, I know that when we first started with the FPL family, it was a dynamic which hadn't really been seen, I guess, in the FPL community before, having a husband and wife kind of do it together. And there was a bit of negativity at the start, not towards Lee by any stretch of the imagination, because he had, the overall rank history to back him up. I had some of that, but actually it was only really since doing the FPL family that my rank history has looked quite impressive. I think I've upped my game, I guess, since being a bit more open.
I think mine's gone in the opposite direction.
Mine as well.
But I think, I had a little bit of kind of like, well, don't listen to her, she's a woman, for about a month or 2 at the beginning of doing this. And then as people start to listen to what you've got to say and start to kind of think, well, actually, the decisions that she's making are going in the right direction. And for me, I feel like there's been a massive shift in attitudes from the community, which I think at the beginning was quite male heavy and male dominated, to being much more of a level playing field, where it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if you are, in the UK or somewhere else around the world. Your opinion is valid and it is valuable to other people that are playing the game.
Yeah, so when I first started out on Twitter, one of the things that made me become quite recognised, I think, is because I had put out a tweet about FPL and it had a lot of stats in it, and I got a reply from just a general account, no real name, no real picture, saying, well, how can you play fantasy football? You're a woman. And I just kind of was so taken aback by it. I was not expecting it whatsoever. And I guess my initial reaction was just to reply by saying, the same as everyone else, I pick up my phone and I use my finger, hashtag pointy bits. And it kind of went a little bit viral at the time. And a lot of guys in the community rallied around me and were very supportive in saying, actually, she's right. It's no different to anybody picking up the game. If you're interested in football, you're interested in football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the most part, the community is hugely inclusive. Yes, we know it is male dominant, but in my experiences, the guys have been fantastic, hugely supportive, and will not tolerate instances where any of the women that they know are being targeted with any kind of negativity in that frame of mind simply because of their gender. Now, on a platform like Twitter or any social media, okay, you're going to get people who have something negative to say, and those are probably people for the large part who aren't actively involved in the community because as I said, there's not a lot of tolerance for that, which is a wonderful thing. I mean, it's a diverse community culturally, globally, and by gender, and that's what we want to see. That's what we want to continue to grow. So yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with everything that Kylie said there. I mean, I feel like the reception towards women in the FPL community has improved over the last 6 or 7 years while I've been a part of it. And that's obviously mirrored, how women are portrayed in terms of football presenting and football punditry, and it's all gone in the right direction. I do feel like maybe for female content creators, it's slightly more difficult to break down those barriers rather than just being a part of the community, particularly if you've not been playing the game very long and maybe you haven't got the most impressive record, but you can quickly prove on merit that you do have a valid opinion and it is worth listening to, and it's one of those things that anything that I put out in the community, my gender has got nothing to do with it. I'm just hoping that people consume my content because, they find it helpful or they're interested in knowing my opinion. And that's continued to be something that's been more prevalent as the years have gone by, which is great to see.
And I guess I think you would all probably echo this, but for me, if you are a woman who's kind of just interested in football, FPL is definitely the place for you. Like it is inclusive, it is a diverse community of people, and I think the game itself benefits from having a number of women, and hopefully, as you say, the more opportunities women globally get to get involved with the game, the better that is in terms of the numbers of women who engage and actively play.